talk about the foreign equity holder. This is one of the type of eligible lenders who can lend money to the borrower, right? Before understanding about foreign equity holder, let's segregate these words. Foreign means any non-resident, right? Equity means the money invested. Holder means getting a ownership, right? So if I combine all these three words, then what would I get? Means any non-resident entity or individual, when it's investing a money, then it's become a owner up to that amount. That is called foreign equity holder, right? Now under this, one is the lender, another one is the borrower. The lender should be a non-resident entity, means it should be a non-resident entity which is a foreign entity, right? Borrower is a Indian entity which should be a resident of India, sorry, right? So here the lender is a foreign equity holder. When it becomes a foreign equity holder, when this lender is acquiring the stake or the share of this borrowing company or holding that stake in the borrowing company, then this lender will become a foreign equity holder, right? Foreign equity holder basically divided into three groups. One is the direct equity holder, the another one is the indirect equity holder, and the third one is the group company with the common overseas parent company. Now what is these three companies were? Right? Let's discuss them in detail. First we will take up with direct equity holder. As the name shows, direct means here the holder is acquiring the shares of a borrowing company directly with no involvement of any intermediary, right? So here the lender is acquiring or holding the stake in the borrower company directly, right? Now, if the transaction of that ECB means the value of external commercial borrowing transaction is within $5 million, you need to remember the amount. If the value of ECB transaction is within $5 million, then the foreign equity holder should have to maintain minimum 25% holding in the borrowing company, right? If I am a borrower, I am applying for a ECB transaction, right? So if the value of transaction is within $5 million, then the overseas lender means the foreign equity holder should have to maintain minimum 25% holding in my company, means in the borrowing company. So here the lender has to maintain minimum 25% holding in the borrower company if the value of ECB transaction is within $5 million. If the value of ECB transaction is more than $5 million, then it also has to maintain 25% holding. Along with that, the DE ratio should not exceed 7:1. Earlier it was 4:1. Now it is 7:1. 7:1 means here that the total of all ECB along with this proposed ECB, right, should not exceed 7 times of that holding by a foreign equity holder. Whatever the value of shares or whatever the value of ownership it is having with the foreign equity holder, then the 7 times of that should not exceed, right? The value of transaction of that ECB along with this current ECB should not exceed the 7 times the value of the holding by a foreign equity holder. So you need to remember this, right? Now we will talk about indirect equity holder. This is also a equity holding by a foreign equity holder. But here the lender is not directly holding such equity in the borrowing company. It is holding through a intermediary. That intermediary is a AMC, means asset management company. Now what is this AMC is? AMC is basically a organization, right? uh, which is pooling the investment or pooling the money or pooling the funds from several investors. After that, it's invested those funds in different securities in different companies, right? So here the lender is also a equity holder but through AMCs, means through a mediator. In this case, under indirect equity holder, the foreign lender should have to maintain minimum 51% holding stake in the borrowing company. Then it can become the eligible lender if it is an indirect equity holder. If it is a direct equity holder, then it has to maintain only 25% of the holding. Now, such holding can be in the form of ELMF, ELSS, ULIP. What is this? ELMF stands for Equity Linked Mutual Funds, right? ELS, Equity Linked Savings Schemes, ULIP, Unit Linked Insurance Policy. So these were SIPs, right? So these were the examples by which a lender can acquire securities, shares of a borrowing company, right? Now let's move forward. Now the third one is the, as we have gone through this, the third one is the group company with common overseas parent company. Now what is this? Here is the borrower and here is the lender. Now when now the lender along with the borrower both were a part of a subsidiary company, which is a subsidiary of a parent company. Means here the borrower and the lender both are a subsidiary of a parent company. Then in that case also the foreign equity holder can make the payment, make the loan procedure completed, right? So if the lender and if the borrower both are belong to the same subsidiary of a same parent company, then in that case also that lender can lend money to the borrower.